And I know for a fact that David really enjoyed this man's music. He played at our convention in Boston. Stefan Saeed, a.k.a. Stephen Smith, is that right? Is an American singer, songwriter, rapper, writer, and global activist of Iraqi and Austrian descent. His musical style bridges pop, hip-hop, rock, and world folk music in a border-breaking sound of unity. His lyrics advocate global equality, social justice, and reconciliation, and he is often cited for having reinvented music for social change for the internet generation. Stefan is fluent in English, French, German, and also sings in Arabic, Spanish, Hebrew, Hungarian, and other languages. He also the founder of Different, the one-stop platform for music for social change. Here we go.
I guess you dig all that up on the internet. How are y'all doing? I'm just honored to be here again and to be with y'all, because just knowing so many veterans for peace and IVAW folks from the beginning to now, I have to say, like, there's no group that just impresses me and that I'm in the most awe of, and it's just an honor to be able to sing for y'all. And Dave was somebody that I became really close to, and he's with me all the time. I carry my little button of his face, remember, from in my one of my guitar cases, and always will. I just, like, it's one of the only things. I'm not somebody who's into like talismans or anything like that, but I just left it in there. And I don't want to talk too much. I just want to sing for y'all, but I want to say something that I hope kind of helps wrap up everything that I've heard, and that is that I know that Dave, number one thing, he was no fool, and even from before February 15th, I remember speaking with him at the first big anti-war rally, and that was already in April 20th of 2002, when we already knew that, if you remember, in D.C., there was a couple 100,000 people already down there at the Washington Monument. And we went back-to-back at that rally and spent the rest of the afternoon speaking about it. And he knew darn well, as I think everybody does here, that the only way to sustain any of our movements now, they can't be isolated in these silos. All humankind has been waiting and has been building to this great movement of a more equitable society. Every prophet, we know this, has talked about it for thousands of years. And yes, we started to ask for it in Seattle in some trying to get their eloquent way that actually said, no, this is different. It's actually the future of the planet at this point is dependent upon our making this shift that we've all dreamt of, right, forever. Right now, we've got to look at that seriously, and now we have the capacity to make that happen. The Arab Spring, I helped, I had one of the first songs that helped build the Egyptian Revolution, and then also helped build the Occupy movement. And we all knew that we needed something far bigger than what Occupy or the Egyptian Revolution and Arab Spring could have ever become, even before those started. We knew they could never succeed. They were going to be they could only be at best, which is amazing, though, the bus boycott phase of this great movement now taking shape, right? For which we now stand up and say, what are we actually for? We're for equal rights for all people. We're for that society we've all dreamt of, and everybody has that right. We've got to take that stand right now. We have the capacity, and Dave was all about this, and that's what the whole Winter Soldier really is about. That's why you're not giving up when it's so. So I just want to say that, and just part when I'll sing you a couple of songs to just say about 2 weeks ago I found out that I come from a military family for several hundred years, but my brother was in the U.S. military. But my family in Iraq was part of the Ottoman Empire, kind of military, and my great-uncle was the leader of the famed Four Colonels Revolt. That was kind of the pivotal anti-colonial revolt across the Middle East and North Africa. He was hung by the British in Baghdad in 1941. But I'm going to Iraq for the 10th anniversary of the invasion in 4 weeks to make a music video and a documentary for global unity. And it's not political at all. I'm talking a huge We Are the World kind of no politics, This Is It, You Can't Stop It pop anthem. And being here with y'all is just, before heading out, is just warms my heart, and I just hope that I'll get to hang out with y'all a little bit afterwards and get some more inspiration and give it to you. This song is called Take a Stand. It goes like this. You can hear there's a really big, like, hip-hop thumping beat to this. If you want to clap your hands along, it's like boom, 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 boom. Here comes the cacophony, polyphony, a great big symphony. Bright light shining through the night of misery. Song ringing around the world about unity and hip-hop, folk, rap, rock, funk, country. All know that we're all one family, couple being leaves growing on the same tree. All we ever wanted was to be free. Can someone please help me with some harmony? Cause I wrote a little song you can sing along. The words so easy it won't take you long. No matter how you sing it can't go wrong. Cause the melody's easy and the backbeat's strong. It's okay, it's okay. We gon' make it through the day together. Take a stand, take a stand, take a stand. In every land, 'cause we all want the same thing. Just to be free, take my hand, take a stand, yeah, take a stand. Can y'all hear me through the mic? I heard some glitching. Well, this one's going out to my brothers in the hood, my brothers in the hood, 'cause I always knew you would. This one's going out to my family in Iraq, holding out hope while the big bombs drop. Going out to my blood in Israel, we'll never get to heaven through the gates of hell. Argentina, Venezuela, Mexico, Todos Santos and Bahia, San Rancho. To my West Virginia home in the hills of high, I hope I'm in your arms on the day I die. Africa, America, Europe, and Australia, let the spirit start growing in the earth. It's alright, it's alright. We gon' make it to the night together. Take a stand, take a stand, take a stand. In every land, 'cause we all want the same thing. Just to be free, take my hand, take a stand, yeah, take a stand, take a stand, take a stand. Take my hand, take a stand, yeah, take a stand. When I got up this morning, I was feeling so free that all I want to do is go and sing about it happily. Will someone please tell me what's got into me? It's a cacophony, polyphony, a great big symphony. Bright light shine through the night of misery. Song ringing around the world about unity and hip-hop, folk, rap, rock, funk, country. Little lady, you can sing along. The words so easy, it won't take you long. No matter how you sing, you can't go wrong. 'Cause the melody's easy and the backbeat's strong. It's all cool, it's all cool. All we ever have to do together. Take a stand, take a stand, take a stand. In every land, 'cause we all want the same thing. Just to be free, so take my hand, take a stand, yeah, take a stand, take a stand, take a stand. Take my hand, take a stand, yeah, take a stand. Y'all, thank you. Michael, I don't know what else is going on. I'll maybe sing y'all one more song just to get your hopes up. I always forget when I come to Connolly's I had to bring my fiddle. But this song is called Another World is Possible. So hopefully I'll see y'all. I only brought 10 copies of my latest CD, which came out last year, that y'all might know. It had the song Ahbaish al-Hurriya, which means I love the life of freedom, which came out on January 29th to help build the Egyptian revolution last year. And then the album was released a week before the Occupy movement began with a manifesto about building this nonviolent movement for human rights in the Progressive magazine. So I've only got 10 copies, but I'll happily give them to whoever wants them, just to share them with y'all for all the work that you do. This is called Another World is Possible, and thank you so much for having me and for everything that y'all do. And in the hopes that and then in the strong belief that we take Dave's and everyone's legacy, everyone's, forward by making this big dream happening, because that's all we can do right now. Just about a bunch of grown men with toys still learning how to lead the hard way. The more things change, they stay the same. Since Jesus walked the earth, still playing the same game. Everybody's waiting to move on. But I know in my heart, all we got to do is start, and another world is possible. Yeah, I'm gonna walk around, I'm gonna make a joyful sound, 'cause another world is possible. Some folks like to scream and shout, raise their fists in the air about everything they think is going wrong. For me, I think we get more done if we join our hearts as one, spread a dream and sing along. 'Cause I know in my heart, all we got to do is start, and another world is possible. Yeah, I'm gonna walk around, I'm gonna make a joyful time, 'cause another world is possible. La, la, la. Ba, ba, da, ba, ba. I read the news today, oh boy, just about a bunch of grown men with toys still learning how to lead the hard way. But today I'm filled with joy, 'cause above all of the noise, I'm thinking about the way things could be. And I know in my heart, all we got to do is start, and another world is possible. Yeah, I'm gonna walk around, I'm gonna make a joyful sign, 'cause another world is possible. Yeah, another world is possible. No, all right, y'all, thank you so much.
Okay, so we're running a little late. Be patient. We're almost done. We're getting ready to show the continuation of that video clip of David Cline. And it's important to listen to that because it's relevant to the next panel that's coming up, okay? Then after that panel, we're going to have maybe a few people say some remembrances of David. Then we're going to sing that David Cline cadence, and we'll be done.
Now, for a long time in the social justice and peace movements, being involved in it, I've had a problem for a long time with the social justice and peace movements because people always say money for human needs, not for war. But when they start making the laundry list of what the human needs are, for many years I never saw veterans issues ever listed. You know, I'm a president of Veterans for Peace. I've been a Vietnam veteran against the war for years. And one of the things I learned is when the shit gets heavy, where they're calling you unpatriotic, they love to get a veteran up in front. You know what I mean? Because it's a lot harder to criticize you. And I don't mind running cover for anybody. That's being a point man. But being a point man means that you're part of the crew. And you have to be listened to at the table and treated justly at the table. So that's what I'm saying here right now, is if with the Iraq veterans, who are the new kids on the block, the baddest boys in town and women, baddest girls in town too, you know, that we can't just let ourselves be put into a position of being window dressing for the peace movement. So I would encourage the Iraq vets, and I know you guys are going to probably talk about this sometime today, to not let this thing go in the wrong direction. The veterans movement has historically had a practice of turning on themselves, not only the veterans movement, but I can tell you from my experience, of getting into fights with each other, and the next thing you know, we're cutting each other's throats instead of going after the people we should be going after. And I think that that's an issue that we've confronted today because a provocation was put out when a person would go to a right-wing email listserv or news service or whatever it is and make statements saying that we shouldn't be here, that we're wrong and insensitive. I think we have to respond, but we have to respond in a thoughtful and a progressive and a unifying way. So I would urge my brothers and sisters from Iraq vets to, in dealing with this, not get themselves too pumped up because, you know, like we used to say, young, dumb, and full of cum, you know. And it's easy to get mad and to throw down. It's easy to get mad and to throw down, but we aren't going to gain anything by throwing down against fellow veterans or people in the movement unless we really determine that they're our enemies. So let me just say in conclusion, I think today was another step in a great movement in this country. We're on the move, you know, and a movement's growing. And I can think back to a year ago when I wasn't here last year, but I can think back to a year ago, the first anniversary, and there was no such a thing as Iraq Vets Against the War. There was no group of guys up in the banner, handing out literature, wearing their camis, any of that, you know. There was no Gold Star Families for Peace. There was Gold Star Families. There's been Gold Star Families since the minute the bullets started flying. But there was no Gold Star Families for Peace. So what I see is a movement that's growing. And the only way a movement's going to keep growing is keep organizing. Keep in the streets. Don't give up. Keep struggling. If you don't struggle, you don't win. Without struggle, there is no progress. Power has conceded nothing without a struggle. It never has and it never will. Those who want progress without struggle are those who want crops without sowing the seeds. So let's struggle. Thank you.
My name is Ben Chitty. I'm a member of Vietnam Veterans Against the War and Veterans for Peace. Okay. Many of you know me, and some don't. As you might guess, when we began to plan this event, we knew that we wanted to carry on. We did not want this to be a one-off event. And what we have planned to do then is to continue the discussion that has started here with a conference on the Veterans Peace Movement. We've scheduled it for Armed Forces Day. That's pretty convenient. May 18th, it's going to be here in New York City. If you signed up at the door, you'll get information about it. But leading up to that, we're going to raise a few issues that we're going to bring up again at the conference. And we're going to start off by inviting Jan Barry, one of the original founders of Vietnam Veterans Against the War, to talk a little bit about where we are now, the state of the world right now.
I had to write this down because I knew I'd forget half of it.
Right.
Don't turn 70. Oh, wait a minute. We made it, right? Last month, 50 years after I turned 20 in Vietnam, I was still alive. All right. As you all know, Dave loved to talk about the big picture, nightmarish clashes of war and peace. And in the next breath, talk about the nitty-gritty details of grassroots organizing to transform horrendous problems into progress. 12 winters ago, Dave and I got stuck in could you believe it, a blizzard in New Jersey. It came out of nowhere. We were driving to Rutgers University in New Brunswick, where I was teaching a class in grassroots organizing. We never got to the class. And we had to spend hours crawling through traffic back to Jersey City. It was not boring to have a conversation for hours stuck in traffic with Dave Cline, talking about the state of the world and what to do about it. Through good health and bad, Dave knew how to pull out of his own experiences insights into the human condition, which people have struggled with since biblical days, to transform murderous wrath into righteous anger that speaks truth to power. He showed us how to reach down into ourselves for the reasons, the resources, and the commitment to work for transformation. I'm going to skip the rest of what I wrote, which had more to do with myself. But one of the points that I wanted to touch on, which I've written about recently, I'm a retired journalist and I teach journalism at colleges, is the news media, of course, has ignored the peace movement for the last 10 years. And 2 years ago, the Nieman Foundation for Journalism at Harvard University called attention to this in an incredible online article, and it used Veterans for Peace and VVAW as an example in which, we can go to the White House, chain ourselves to the White House fence. 131 people are arrested, and some of them are here. And it doesn't make the national news media. As Dave would say, so what? Just keep doing it. I want to jump to something that's, you're going to do it all over again at the very end of this thing, but I want to put it into a context because I also write poetry, and for the last several years I've been working with primarily Iraq and Afghan veterans on a warrior writers project, and out of that came a set of poems, one of which I clearly was influenced by Dave Cline. It was called Peace March, and I do this a lot in places where I read poetry. Lift your head and hold it high. Veterans are passing by. Tell them what we're marching for. Freedom, justice, no more war. Here comes an offbeat, onbeat band of grain veterans for peace, calling out marching cadence that rings through city streets. New York, Chicago, Washington, Los Angeles, New Orleans, Boston, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, San Francisco, St. Louis, Minneapolis, San Diego, Albuquerque, Denver, Gainesville, Fayetteville, Baltimore, Seattle, Salt Lake City, Cape Cod, Atlanta, Binghamton, Portland, both of them. March in column right out of Dallas to the G.W. Bush Ranch at Crawford, Texas. Some of you were there. Then column left to the White House to tell Obama to stop war's senseless losses. Recycling military cadences for peace. Old soldiers around the march. Wall Street, Broadway, Battery Park, Jersey City, Newark, Teaneck. We are veterans against the war.
We are veterans against the war.
We know what we're marching for.
We know what we're marching for.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Stop the killing, stop the war, and we're famous for this.
All right.
All right. Next, I'd like to bring up Jerry Lembcke. He's an associate professor of sociology at Holy Cross, an Army veteran of Vietnam, and has written 2 books which are very good to read. One's called The Spitting Image. The other one's called Hanoi Jane, and he's going to talk about the role that veterans play in witnessing the truth about war.
Can this come down just a little bit? All right, that's pretty good. Thanks. As witnesses to war, as witnesses to history, war veterans are especially important. Wars mark turning points in history of nations and form the identity of whole generations. In the case of the United States, moreover, all of its wars since the Civil War have been fought thousands of miles from the homeland, making the witness of them by Americans other than those who fought and a few journalists all but impossible. The war in Vietnam made the veteran as witness role even more significant. The length and loss of the war, coupled with the dissent surrounding it, made civilians on the home front even more appreciative of the first-hand reports brought home by GIs, Marines, airmen, and sailors. As skepticism grew about official claims of a light at the end of the tunnel, Americans sought out returnees for a second opinion on what was really going on over there. Those views from the bottom of the military hierarchy, had special resonance with historians, sociologists, and journalists who were also rethinking their traditional reliance on views from the top, business leaders, politicians, and Pentagon press releases. The privilege traditionally given the official view was seriously undermined when the Pentagon Papers revealed that the government had been lying about the war for years. Inadvertently, the papers also confirmed that eyewitness accounts like those coming home from Vietnam as early as 1965 by Donald Duncan were more reliable. The publication of the Pentagon Papers and the Winter Soldier testimonies both in 1971 were a double-barreled blow to government and Pentagon credibility about the war. The power of veteran witnessing lived on through many return delegations to Vietnam to assist rebuilding projects and landmine recovery and to lobby at home for a demilitarization of our priorities. David Cline and many others marched and spoke tirelessly against U.S. interventions in Central America and the Middle East. In cooperation with scholars, writers, and filmmakers, they lent their memories to the still ongoing efforts to record the history of the war. Witnessing, of course, has its limitations. War veterans not accepted. For one thing, through Vietnam, most veteran witnesses were men. The American sense of what The American sense of war comes with that sex-gender bias. Criticism of war often dismissed as unmanly, or even associated with mythical betrayal figures like Hanoi Jane. The reliability of eyewitness accounts is also questionable. Courts now consider eyewitness testimony skeptically. Memory is not a snapshot. All of our memories undergo revision constantly. And the more intensive the interaction between our memories and the conversations with others, or through exposure to film and literature, the more those memories change. There's also the age factor, and the aging process takes its toll. But that too is subject to cultural influences. The older we get, the better we were, in case you haven't heard. But old soldiers don't have a monopoly on war stories. And the war story problem in Vietnam veterans witnessing presents some special ironies. The very power of veteran testimonies about atrocities overwhelmed almost all else in public memory of the war in Vietnam. Subsequently, veterans' attempts to establish their authenticity as witnesses sometimes drew them into exaggerated or even false associations with atrocities. To have raped, cut off ears, or tossed prisoners out of helicopters seemed to be the credentials that fellow Americans were looking for. The symbiosis of terrible things witnessed, the mythologies of veterans mistreated upon their return, the desire of anti-war liberals to see the unhurt of veterans, the unseen hurt of veterans, the seduction of atrocity stories to credential combat bona fides, all of that converged to fabricate the victim-veteran image that Hollywood made iconic. For my book, The Spitting Image, I watched over 100 films portraying Vietnam veterans, nary one of them in a healthy, wholesome image. The consequences of this twisted legacy carried into the new wars, with veterans of the last war, Vietnam, uniformly portrayed as damaged goods. It's not hard to imagine the troops deployed to Kuwait and then Iraq and Afghanistan thinking sick and hurt are the ways that real-deal combat veterans come home from war. Hollywood picked up where it left off, recycling old Vietnam themes through new films. The only political veteran in Jarhead is a whacked-out holdover from Vietnam. Valley of Elah reprised Americans at war with Americans. Stop Loss teased us with some political figures, but in the end, the filmmaker lost her nerve and sent Brandon and Steve back to Iraq. Too dangerous, I guess, to have Hollywood vets come home empowered and politicized. The veteran image thus disparaged, it's a miracle that IVAW got the traction it did. At the IVAW base tour stop in New London a few years ago, I approached the literature table and asked how things were going. Okay, I was told, but it's been frustrating. How so, I asked. Well, everywhere we go, people mostly want to talk about PTSD. He paused, and then he waved his arms out at his fellow travelers having a beer and a burger, and he asked, do these guys look fucked up to you? It makes it hard to organize. Organize is what we need to do. And we need to give some careful thought to the image we've created as veteran witnesses. It's ironic, tragic even, to think that the war witnessing of my generation, a la Winter Soldier, might be a factor in guards at Abu Ghraib prison having staged their own atrocities and then photographed themselves as witnesses to their atrocity. It's the perfect perversion of what VVAW and IVAW are all about, of course. But it would behoove us to consider how our own representations of ourselves might be inadvertently feeding a beast we don't want fed. We need to organize. We need to educate. We need to teach. We need to learn. And we need to organize. Thank you.
Next, We're going to hear from Greg Payton, member of VVAW and Veterans for Peace, and also active with U.S. Labor Against the War and the War Resisters League. Greg.
Good evening. Yeah, first of all, it's a great honor to be up here. I stand on the shoulders of vets like Clarence Fitch and, of course, Dave Cline. I was just trying to reimagine what these guys would have thought about this gathering. You know, there's so many things to talk about, Dave, and they talking about the social justice aspect of veterans organizing and things like that. I was just talking to a vet earlier, and we were talking about what are the new ways that we're going to have to do to begin to get more people involved, more young people involved. And one of the things, and see, part of what I do is work with U.S. Labor Against the War. We're working to end wars, but we're also recognizing that there's an anti-labor movement in this country that's going to affect all of us. And see, it's really hard for veterans to come out and find a decent job and to find a living wage job, and that's going to cause a lot of problems. So there's a lot of interlocking of groups and stuff that we need to begin to interlock with socially and stuff. I also felt that we need to also begin to start talking about direct services for these veterans coming home. We need to figure out ways where we can provide services and ways that we can attract them. Because more what's happening now is that I work in social services, and I'm seeing guys come home, from prison, veterans from prison, and they can't find their way. And there have to be some type of organization set up where we can begin to rechannel that energy so that we can make some real change in this world. You know, one thing about David, one thing about Clarence, they were about action and about doing stuff. I mean, Dave rapped a lot, but he'd be the first one out on the line. You know what I mean? He would be the first guy out there, and we have to really begin to start taking that energy and see. It's great that we're here because I think this has rekindled a lot of people's involvement in what we do. We forgot how many years it's been since we've been together. People are talking. You haven't seen some faces that you haven't seen in years, heard some names you haven't heard in years. And like, what has happened? Many of us have sort of slipped away into our own little private domains, but now it's time to take the gloves off. We need to come back out again. These folks need some direction. One of the things about us is that we understand some stuff. We have the family situations. We understand what people are going through, and we have to begin to share that with some of these younger veterans. We have to begin to be available so that if they need this counseling, if they need somebody to talk to, that we're available to them. Because, see, as we look around, things are not going to get any better in this country. And as I'm looking at stuff, it doesn't look good right now for me. I'm optimistic because that's why I'm out here doing what I'm doing today. But as I look down, I'm not seeing the kind of energy and stuff. People seem to be like, just going about, hey, listen, these drone situations, everybody's kind of like, oh, the drone. Yeah, well, listen, we know that the day they're over there, tomorrow they'll be on Fifth Avenue, if they're not there already. And next day they'll be in your backyard. So we don't know what they're doing because they don't want to even tell us what they're doing. And again, we're going to have to begin to start knocking down some of these walls and start beginning to do some stuff and hear our voices heard again, because I think a lot of times they forgot about us. And see, every time one of these jokers get up and say, they support our troops, I want to put my finger down my throat. Because I know it's a bunch of BS. I know that they support our troops. Yeah, but when they get home, listen here, they have to wait like maybe several months to get an appointment at the VA. There's nobody there to try to issue them. Like when I left Vietnam, I didn't have any, they didn't deprogram me, anything like that. And they're not deprogramming these guys coming home from Afghanistan and Iraq. This is the tip of the iceberg. We've been hearing little tidbits of what's happening. We know about the suicide rate. We know about what's happening to women in the military, the rapes. And we have to begin to start fighting to stop these things. So socially, I think that what happens is we have to really come together with groups in our neighborhood. We have to, and see, the part of it is just like Dave said, we are the vanguard because we've been through the war. We understand what that is. There are a lot of groups that look to us for leadership, but that doesn't mean that they forget about who we are and what we do. But we need to come together and start working with other groups and do a lot of things. I've done that, and I think it's been a real good thing for me, a real education. I've been able to bring that voice that sometimes is silent in them rooms, in the meetings, to task in terms of what's happening with people and what's going on. So I just want to say that, again, I was thinking here, and the whole time I was thinking about what we're doing here with Dave, I thought about when we went back to Vietnam and how important that was for us and how we felt our way back through some of the stuff we did. You may not notice, but Dave went into like a little flashback while we were in Vietnam. And I was sitting next to him on a bus, and he was right back at the Black Virgin Mountain again. And he was going through some stuff, and I sort of talked him through it. And we met the commandant of that area. And that commandant of that area happened to be in a firefight with Dave. They were on opposite sides, of course, but when they talked through the whole process, they found out they were in the same situation at the same time. And he embraced Dave, he hugged him. And he provided a banquet lunch for us that was, even the interpreter saying, this is unprecedented. We don't never get this kind of stuff, you know, for people coming into Vietnam. So I'm saying that the magnitude of what he did and the kind of things that other guys have done is just remarkable. And this is a remarkable turnout. And I'm just grateful to be here representing. And, you know, give him hell, Dave. Thanks.
Finally, I'd like to introduce Mike Reid. He's the new Executive Director of Veterans for Peace.
Thank you.
Broke it. Testing it. There we go. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I should have sat in the first seat because I'm running out of stuff to say. So, as the last person, I want to tell you, first of all, ditto. I agree with everything that everyone said up here. The other thing I want to talk about is that the great poet and singer Gil Scott-Heron said that the revolution will not be televised. Obviously, he didn't know it was going to be cable television, satellite TV, and reality TV. There are bits of the revolution that we see every day through through the Occupy movement. I want to talk to you a little bit how that might have happened. First of all, let me thank you for making me, and I'll explain how that happened. I am a child of a Vietnam soldier, okay? Young. As soon as he went in at 19. I was born. I was a child of a teenage marriage, teenage pregnancy. My grandparents would really get on me about that one. A teenage pregnancy, and I grew up watching on Saturday morning the death toll scrolling across the screen every day. Didn't have a dad in my life. I was in a single parent home because my father was in Nam. In 1969 or 70, there was a big earthquake in St. Louis, and my dad finally walked through the door. I hadn't ever seen my dad before. I knew he existed. But when he got back, when he came in, he never talked about what he did. Never, ever, ever. I've never heard of anything. Fast forward, my mom got married to my dad, and then they got divorced. Then I had to be raised again. This was like in 70, 73, because of some problems my dad was going through from PTSD. And I really never told this story, so it's great I'm telling it. But what was built from that, the brothers and sisters from Nam came and raised me. That's who came and raised me. They taught me how to be an activist. They taught me how to push against the system. I was raised in the Black Panther Party after then, and then the All African People's Revolutionary Party. This was all those brothers and sisters that were involved in it were military members, or members of the military, at least 80, 85%. Those guys would come, and we would give them huge respect, not because they were in the military. Well, I guess because they were in the military. They would wear their fatigues, always some type of, fatigue cap or some jungle boots or beret, and we knew who that guy was. We knew that was the militant. You had three different types of people in the urban community, leaders in the community. You had the dope dealers, or the pimps and the pushers, as what they were called then. You had the smart guys, and then you had what we call the militants. And I was raised by a militant. Without the help of the Vietnam vets coming back and raising me and teaching me what was right, there wouldn't be a Mike Reid, there wouldn't be a Zuri Reid, who was my daughter, and there wouldn't be a lot of other things that I was able to reach out because I decided to go into social work. Saying that is that I'm saying that because we really, really need you. We don't need you to retire anytime soon. Your knowledge is valuable. I keep hearing up here, organize, organize, organize. That's what VFP is going to do and trying to do. Organize as a group, not as separate pockets of an organization, but as a powerful organization, 5,000 members strong. And growing. We need your help, though. We definitely do. We need you to reach out to the younger vets, reach out to vets of color, reach out to women, reach out to the LGBTQ community to bring some more vets in here. The issue is we're having a lot of fights in VFP whether we need to, whether we should give them a blanket or give them a banner to protest. I think we need to do both, and that's personally because it's the way. Oh God, let me use this. It's the way the faith-based community has done it for years and decades, and it works. We have to do that, and there are a lot of chapters that are splitting over this issue. This concerns me because I find, and I talk to Michael about this a lot. We talk a lot that the peace movement may be waning, especially after 2014. We're going to have to reinvent ourselves. We're going to look like a bunch of screaming idiots saying that there's a war when I guarantee there's going to be fanfare in 2014. There's going to be the flags back, the little banners on the walls, and on the cars and decals. It's going to happen. Oh yeah, the war is over. I feel they're going to pump that up. And where does that leave us? In 2008, a lot of the peace and justice organizations were gone. Their websites were shut down. This can happen again, and war is not going to end anytime soon, which gives me job security, I hope. Unfortunately, I don't want that kind of job security. But I'm urging you to build more Mike Reids if you can. Get out there and reach the younger generation because they have no damn idea how to do what you've done. And I'm telling you that honestly, they have no idea, and they need your leadership. So I don't have much else to say but beg for your help, and don't quit on us. Don't retire anytime soon. Don't give up. You're going to have fights inside your chapter. Don't leave us because there's a handful of people like myself that are out here doing this. I'll be reaching 50 pretty soon, and I guarantee you there aren't many people in my generation. I'm a young guy. That's right. 50 is really old.
Yeah, right.
So, thank you.
So that's it, actually. Right. Thank you very much.
Jan Barry, Jerry Lembcke, Greg Payton, Mike Reid. Armed Forces Day, May 18th, New York City. Be there.
Good. Yeah.
Well, we've had a great day. I see it's thinning out because we were supposed to end at 4:30, and we're about to end right now. There's one. Hello, everybody. We're about to end. I know we can chill out for a few more minutes as I close this out. So please. In that last clip, there's a few things in that last clip that I want to point out that David Cline said. One of them, and it was talked about here as well, and it manifests itself different ways in different chapters. One of the things David said is you don't want to throw down with the veterans unless you come to the determination that they are really your enemy. Because there's other people that we really need to be throwing down with. So I want us to remember that. We don't need to be throwing down with each other because there's people out there we need to be throwing down with, okay? So if the person's not really your enemy, don't throw down with them. Figure out how not to do that. The other thing, there was a quote that David liked to quote constantly, one that he loved from Frederick Douglass, and he said it in the clip. So I want to give you that quote, not in its entirety because it's part of a large speech, but a little bit more of it. If there is no struggle, there is no progress. For those who profess to favor freedom and yet deprecate agitation are men who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters. This struggle may be a moral one, it may be a physical one, and it may be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. Find out just what any people will quietly submit to, and you have found out the exact measure of injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them. And these will continue till they are resisted with either words or blows or with both. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress. So to close, Joseph Handke, when David died, wrote a cadence that we sang last time to celebrate David Cline, and it's very similar to what Jan read. So we're going to do that, I think, again to close and remember David. So I'm going to try to lead this. All right. Hey, hey, David Cline.
Hey, hey, David Cline.
David was a friend of mine.
David was a friend of mine.
David Cline talked the talk.
David Cline talked the talk.
David Cline walked the walk.
David Cline walked the walk.
Bush and Cheney's war is hell.
Bush and Cheney's war is hell.
Prophets for Exxon and for Shell.
Prophets for Exxon and for Shell.
Bush and Cheney leaders failed.
Bush and Cheney leaders failed.
Bush and Cheney belong in jail.
Bush and Cheney belong in jail.
Am I right or wrong?
You're right.
Am I right or wrong?
You're right.
David's body has passed along.
David's body passed along.
But he's here to sing this song.
But he's here to sing this song.
War just makes the children die.
War just makes the children die.
War just makes the mothers cry.
War just makes the mothers cry.
Bush and Cheney stomp and squawk.
Bush and Cheney stomp and squawk.
That's because they're chicken hawks.
That's because they're chicken hawks.
Send them both to a cell.
Send them both to a cell.
Pack them off away to hell.
Pack them off away to hell.
Hey, hey, David Cline.
Hey, hey, David Cline.
David was a friend of mine.
David was a friend of mine.
David's body may be gone,
David's body may be gone.
but he sing this cadence song.
But he sings this cadence song.
Am I right or wrong?
You're right.
Are we weak or strong?
We're strong.
Sound off.
1, 2,
Sound off.
3, 4.
Break it on down.
1, 2,
3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.